It's World Adoption Day, and this morning we're exploring the challenges with adoption in South Africa. We'll also explore why the number of legal adoptions has fallen significantly over the past few years. Joining me in studio is Lithaletemba Stwayi from the University of Pretoria's Center for Child Law, as well as Gogontombi, to give us a perspective on the cultural implications of adoption. Ladies, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. At last check in 2016, 3.1 million children were orphaned in this country, but we're not adopting as well. Why is that?
Well, there may be various reasons. For example, maybe there are family members that are there taking care of the children already. But there's been a decline in adoption in South Africa, and there seems to be a rhetoric that children should not be adopted. But it's not really being said out loud, it seems.
Sure.
So at the moment, it's the systemic problem. So social workers, the adoptive social workers are experiencing problems, and it's either with the courts or sometimes with the department.
Are we finding that people from outside of South Africa are adopting children here?
We actually have less inter-country adoptions than national adoptions, but even national adoptions have gone down.
Gogontombi, when you speak to some people, they argue that adopting a child is un-African. You need to have a child of your own because the ancestors then don't know this child that you're bringing into the family.
I'm not so sure where that thinking came about, because adoption itself has always existed within our communities in a very informal way. And part of what the challenge has been was to legalize and formalize it. And some of the reasons that it had to become legal and professional were where you find that a couple, something happens, it's an estate issue, it's a will issue, these people have passed away. So we've had to formalize it. So I don't know, and I disagree. Particularly for me, I think on some level, and this has always been my personal belief, that when children are adopted, there has to be some sort of a collaboration that goes on with that child's ancestors, the ancestors of the adoptive parents, plus the biological parents. So for as long as we acknowledge and name and respect that background, there shouldn't be an issue. If anything, then they have even more ancestors looking after them.
100%.
Yes.
And, you know, children are angels, really.
Yes.
So, yeah, that is something else. But, Lita, you touched on the point that perhaps families don't want to adopt because, you know, it's not your child. But for those who do want to adopt, what is the process? Is it easy also in South Africa to adopt a child? Could that not be a problem as well, where it's difficult maybe sometimes?
So the law is there, whether if you want to adopt, if you want to do a national adoption or an inter-country adoption. So with national adoptions, it's quite a rigorous process. It's not an easy one, but it seems like there's barriers that are being created going around the actual law now. So that's what the problem is at the moment.
What are those barriers?
So, for example, we get queries from people with problems with children. So one of the ones we've actually had, and clients that we've assisted, were it was a married couple. The one parent was South African and the other parent was not South African, but they were staying in South Africa. And because the other parent did not have permanent residence yet, they was experiencing a lot of problems with that. And in the law, it says who can adopt a couple, a married couple, whether it be two males or a heterosexual relationship, but it's a couple can adopt. But because there's the list called RACAP, which is the Register for Adoptable Children and Parents, which says parents may be put on that list. So, and to be put on that list, you must be a person with permanent residence or a citizen. So it kind of goes around who may adopt, because if my spouse is not from South Africa, that at the moment it's been interpreted as then he can't adopt. I can adopt the child by myself, but he cannot adopt.
Sure.
But that's not what the law is saying. So there's problems with interpretation. So depending on where you go, you might have a person who, like one of our clients was put on RECAP because he was found to be fit and proper, because you have to be fit and proper. So you have to do all the extensive background checks on you. He was found to be fit and proper. He didn't have permanent residence. But then the court was saying, no, but he needs to have permanent residence. So in that specific case, the magistrate refused to actually hear the adoption application. So we sat with a problem where we can't really take the matter forward. We can't take it on review because no decision has been made, because it hasn't actually sat in court. So we then had to get them to make a decision saying that, okay, you're choosing not to make a decision, please give us the reasons.
Yeah.
Then we took that on appeal.
Yeah. Gogo, no spiritual implications. If anything, you are gaining more protection and love from your ancestors. Let's talk to families. What you say to a child is what you are saying to an adult when they grow up. This rhetoric of this child will give you problems when they grow up because they're not from this family. It's through hearing that that you become then a problem, because when you're told all you are is a problem, you will then become a problem. Let's talk to families in terms of people who have adopted children and what they're telling their children.
Of course, adoption as well is a very personal thing for me. It has been a journey that I've walked as well. So I know these barriers very, very well. I'm very familiar with them. And the psychologists will tell you themselves, the social workers, that you start telling the child as soon as they can understand, and you nurture them. You nurse them into the situation. I mean, one of the beautiful stories that I heard was the one child who, remember, children have a frame of reference in terms of what they've grown up with and they're familiar with. And there's a single woman that I know of who adopted a child, and she was ready to adopt her second child. And, kids at school were sort of mocking him about how his mom didn't carry him in his tummy. But because he had always grown up and been loved and appreciated and acknowledged and was told the truth about where he comes from, he was like, well, actually, my mom is in a much better place in that she actually didn't put on weight, she didn't have, and yeah, I'm ready, let's go get another one.
Yeah.
Like, he was so excited about this because it was his frame of reference, that what he was raised to believe. So it is about that. It's about the message that you send. In the same vein where a pregnant woman herself, remember, on a spiritual and emotional level, energy is energy. Even a woman carrying a child that is not necessarily happy around that pregnancy and happy with the relationship that she has with the father of the child also has an imprint on that child, and yet it's a biological child. So it's about the message, it's about your transmission. What were you receiving as information, and what are we saying as information?
100%. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Clearly a lot of work that still needs to be done in this space. Lita Letemba Stwai as well as Gogo Ntombi, thank you for your time.